Good morning, evening, or afternoon. My name is Sigma. I am your kind and benevolent DM. And really quick, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to someone who we are going to call Painter. Painter did the wonderful artwork that is the album covers for Oblivion, a Star Wars story, and Eclipse, a Star Wars story. Their artwork will hopefully be featured more in the future of this channel. But I just wanted to give a big shout out to them because they worked really hard on it, and I really can't thank them enough for doing this artwork because I am about as talented with a pencil as somebody who is not talented at all with a pencil. So, huge thank you to them, and without further ado, let's get into the show. Welcome back to another episode at the tavern. We're back for episode two now, or I guess it's technically three since we had like a starter episode that we did before we even started recording. But episode two of Oblivion, a Star Wars story, the Rebel side of the campaign. We have the Rebel team that is contesting the Imperial team. We have with us this week, we have Origami Jakk, who will not be talking even though he is here and does exist. Jelmorr Gray, Narsor, and Ophelia. Sadly, B1 and Dobrax could not make it this evening, and they will be staying on the shuttle, which is where you guys last left off. So we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to summarize kind of where we left off because of things that transpired. We haven't played together in a long, long time. So where we last left off was the following. You guys, after talking to your liaison named Joris Airfire, a Quarren rebel, who Jakk was actually staying with, and we'll get to kind of where he is in a little bit. But um, you guys talked to Joris, and you flew in to this Imperial compound on an Imperial shuttle. Does anybody remember what the three objectives for the mission are?
Guns, ship codes, and something else.
And supplies. So
Supplies.
that's, yep, so supplies, weapons, and codes are all stored in this compound, and the mission will be counted as a success if you guys are able to bring any of those three home. If you can bring more than just one, that will count towards your benefits later on, but right now you should just be focused on getting at least one of those out. I also mentioned in the last episode that you guys will most likely be able to reuse an Imperial shuttle if you can get those codes. Right now, Jelmorr and Ophelia are with a deck officer next to an Imperial shock trooper and an Imperial stormtrooper right outside of the big metal gate that kind of partitions the rest of the compound from the hangar area. And then the rest of the team, which would be Aura Dobrax, B1, and Narsor. Jakk is not in the compound. Again, we'll get to that in a little bit. They are all still on the Imperial shuttle. They just took out basically, how many did you take out? One, two, three, four. You took out four stormtroopers. You have four unconscious stormtroopers in the shuttle. So, Jelmorr and Ophelia, you guys are, if I remember correctly, you guys, or rather, Jelmorr misfired, quote, quote, his blaster in order to get the deck officer's attention. But that also drew the attention of the shock trooper and the stormtrooper. So you guys have these uh, you guys have these three Imperials standing around you. How are you how are you handling this?
Uh, I am standing completely still as I am in uh, Imperial officer wardrobe, so I cannot break character, and I'm doing my best not to. So I am standing as still as possible, at attention, almost as if nothing happened.
So you're trying to play it off like
Yep.
it's all good, just a misfire,
I
nothing
mean,
to worry about.
I mean, my face shows no emotion, just as if that is not a part of my duties. Like I am just focused on not him.
Jelmorr, what about you? What are you what's your take on the situation?
As a person who has dealt with stormtroopers and the like in the past, I know exactly what shock troopers are capable of, and I am not very happy under the helmet, but they can't see that, thank God. Um, so I am just trying not to freak out outside, but I am not doing well on the inside.
All right, then cool. All right, so the Imperial officer is looking at you like kind of what the heck? Trooper, are you quite all right? Did your blaster misfire?
I would look down at my blaster and up at him and say, must be something wrong with the gas. I'm not really sure what happened, sir.
I see. Well, you're going to need to get that checked out immediately. That could seriously hurt someone. And he gestures to the shock trooper and says, "Sergeant, take this trooper into the base and have his weapon checked and made sure that it is secure. And in the meantime, get him a new one. And then you, trooper, I don't know what's taking so long with those others. Go to the shuttle and see what's taking them so long." The sergeant nods and says,
"Yes, sir. You got it."
and the trooper looks to him, and then the shuttle gives kind of a sigh and then says,
"Sir, yes, sir."
And then he jogs off to the shuttle. All four of you, the shock trooper, the officer, Ophelia, and Jelmorr, you all walk towards that main entrance. If you refer to the map, the southernmost doorway, the really big gap to the left, that is a giant cargo bay door, and then the smaller one that's about dead center with the platforms is a smaller blast door. So you guys are being walked there. Narsor and Aura, Dobrax is kind of curled up into a ball in the corner because anybody who was here last time remembers his attempt to help out and how it didn't work out so well. So he's kind of just curled up into a ball in the corner, not wanting to do much of anything now because he's just scared out of his mind. And then B1 is busy kind of securing the four stormtroopers you already have unconscious. Aura and Narsor, you see another trooper coming for the shuttle. What do you do?
Prep for the second he walks in to just grab him and basically suffocate him so he can't use his radio.
I'm gonna watch, and if it goes wrong, I'm going to try to help.
Okay. Narsor, how do you prepare yourself to ambush? Like,
I'm assuming
how,
we've gotten the bodies.
How does a
out,
Hergil hide? Or a Herglick,
Okay.
sorry.
So we've gotten the bodies like out of sight at this point, right?
Yes.
So, and we've already established I can fit under the floor of the shuttle. So Narsor is gonna hide right under the floor near the beginning, so that the second he steps on, he could just
Whack.
after he steps on, he could just pull him under and just pull him under in such a way that his helmet would probably get
So
caught,
so to paint.
and then just hold him
Okay, so
down.
hold up. So are you gonna leave the panel like slightly ajar so that the trooper like stops and looks down in it? Then you're just gonna reach up and grab his head and yank him in?
More or less.
Okay, then I need you to roll to kick some ass.
I can definitely do that.
And I believe you have the thingy where it's plus weird instead of plus tough, right?
That is correct.
All right, give me a roll. What's the roll? The roll is an 8.
That's
That is a success. On a 7+, you or whatever you're fighting inflict harm on each other. So,
I would be grabbing him with my hand, using my hands obviously. So that's 2 harm, ignoring armor.
yeah. So that's So he is still up. He has standard armor, so he only takes. Wait, you said ignores
I
armor.
ignore armor.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he only has. Okay, so he falls down after you grab hold of him, and he gets ready to fire off a blaster shot, and he squeezes the trigger, and you take. Let's see, how much does it do? You take -2 harm, but that is not ignoring armor. So how much harm does that do?
2. I don't have armor.
2. All right, so you take 2 harm. So before we get into the base, let's talk to Jakk. So Jakk is currently in a text chat. He's listening and he can't talk. So Jakk, hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm great.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So Jakk, you were absent for the last game, so what we're going to do is we're going to set you up with kind of your own scene. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say that you are outside of the compound. Let's get into kind of who's with you, because I'm very excited to introduce this particular character. So let's rewind time a little bit to after the team left, and Jakk, you were still with Joris. So you and Joris are kind of sitting there, and Joris gets a call on his communicator, and he takes it, he talks to the person on the other end for a little bit, and then he turns back to you and says, "All right, so we have a way for you to get into the base." And he gestures to a land speeder that is coming up from the distance, and he says, "Go with them, and they will get you into the base with the rest of your team." And he doesn't say much more than that.
Jakk would nod and speak a little Jawais, looking around at his environment, then slowly approaching the speeders.
All right, so this is kind of like the I forget what the model is, but it's the red land speeder from A New Hope, Luke's land speeder, and you get in and you ride for a few minutes. It takes about half an hour to an hour, and I've never really taken the time to describe the planet of Janundal, so let me kind of paint a picture for you. So it's very similar to our world in that it kind of changes in biome, but for the most part, when it comes to being wooded at all, it's all generally rocky pine trees. It's a very mountainous, green, or rather evergreen, northern hemisphere. Then you go, once you get kind of to the midline and around there, it's more desert and rock and clay, and then it slowly becomes pine and mountains again. So it has a array of scenery, but you are kind of traveling along what seems to be the line of gradiency where the two are kind of blending together. It's a mixture. The ground beneath you is a mixture of kind of like sand and dirt with rocks, not quite clay, but you're traveling there. And then soon you come in sight of the city of Jakk, which is home to the compound your team is currently in. And you see the compound off to the west, I believe. I'd have to go back and listen to the previous episode to know, but if I didn't say a prime direction, then it is the west. In West Jakk, you see this large compound that is clearly Imperial. As you get into Jakk and you kind of start moving through the streets, your speeder slows down. You don't act suspicious. You get towards the base without much trouble. Then eventually you stop in an alley and you and your driver dismount and you go into a small building. Inside the building are five people. There are 2 humans, including your driver. There's a Twi'lek. There's another Quarren. And then there is one rather large hooded figure. They are bipedal, and they talk in a very gruff accent. They have a mask, a plate mask, covering their face, and it kind of mods their voice.
Jakk would be extremely uncomfortable speaking Jawaese softly as he was scared. He is insecure about his height compared to others, but regardless, he looks around to everyone. He was also thinking about the speeder and what he could do if he took it apart. It makes him almost sad he isn't getting a chance to scrap it for parts.
Which I think is hilarious, but okay. They don't seem to take very much notice of your height. I mean, they look down at you, but only to make eye contact with you. And the tall one who is across a hollow table from you nods and says, "So I guess you're the one from the team that took off a few hours ago." Would somebody turn that crap off?
Hey.
Yeah.
Somebody turn that disrespectful junk off.
C-3PO barges in. How rude!
He would speak Jawaese, but is unsure if the others understand it, though he nods.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, it looks like we might have to go in and offer your guys support since they have already managed to fire off 2 blaster shots, although they don't seem to have alerted the compound yet, which is good. You guys show promise. But, I was thinking we could go in the southeast gate. What do you think? And he pulls up a image of the base on a hologram and shows you the 2 main entrances, a north gate and a southeast gate.
Jakk would facepalm at how badly his team is doing, then looks up to give a thumbs up.
The big figure chuckles and nods and says, "All right, we've only detected 1 perimeter team. It looks like a couple of stormtroopers and a shock trooper walking around. We can handle them. If you can handle opening the door. We can have somebody else open the door, but in exchange, you're going to have to help us with the troopers."
Jakk puts up 2 fingers, going for the second option. Then he takes a look at himself, bringing his hands up as if measuring his height. He does this to show them how much of a disadvantage he's at, compared to literally everything.
The tall figure kind of chuckles again. He says, "You know, there are some people out there who are just as small, if not smaller than you, and they can put a dent in a stormtrooper's helmet way more than I can, and that's saying something." He kind of cracks his knuckles and says, "You'll be fine. Let's go."
Jakk speaks a little Jawaese, excited and now reassured. He feels for his blaster, then follows the tall figure.
Okay, So let's bounce back to Ophelia and Jelmorr because now we're pretty much caught up. Everything's happening kind of at the same time. So, okay, so you guys walk in through that main door, and as you enter that door, in front of the door you just came through, there is another door that you assume leads to the warehouse. You then hang a right as you enter the door, and that's where your party splits. Jelmorr, you are taken by the shock trooper sergeant down a corridor to the left near a kind of intersection of corridors, while Ophelia, you are continually led down the corridor, and then you hang a sharp left around a corner. You pass by another entrance on your right, but eventually you come through a series of turns to another door. And through this door, you are taken to the command center. The deck officer kind of nods to the other officers in the room and gestures for you to stand kind of off to the side while he approaches a panel. Jelmorr, after you're led down that corridor, you too enter a room, and you are greeted with a wall that has a metal grate and a window in it, and behind that there are tables and racks of blasters and different munitions. Ophelia, you are in the command center, and Jelmorr, you are in the armory. Ophelia, what do you do?
Command so as to not draw attention to my intentions. So I do stand in the corner, but I am keenly observing what everyone is doing and what potential things I can access from here to bring back for the mission.
Right. Okay. Jelmorr, what about you? What are you doing?
I go to the right of the room and stand at attention, waiting for the sergeant to give any order he would. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. We will handle Jelmorr's first because it stands to reason you guys would get there faster. There is a solitary Imperial member behind the counter while the sergeant is over on your side of the fence. He slings his blaster rifle over his shoulder, and he offers a hand, or extends a hand rather, to you for your weapon. What do you do?
I hand him my weapon and stay silent as I try to size him up, see how much larger he is than I am.
Okay.
Any weaknesses, if I can.
This sounds like a read a bad situation roll. So go ahead and roll plus sharp for me. And that's a 12. So that's a crit.
What would be the biggest threat excluding the shock trooper?
You don't. Okay. Let me answer a question with a question then. How much time did Jelmorr spend learning the ways of the Empire? Like, I know your in your backstory, somebody you cared about deeply was killed by the Empire, but before that, did you have any experience with them? Do you know anything of Imperial protocol? Um, what's it like in your backstory there?
Before the accident, there would be nothing, but after the accident, he did study up on how they operate to make sure that he can operate as safely and efficiently as possible when he did what he thought he was required to do.
So in that case, you know that it is standard protocol for the quartermaster to carry some form of moderate to heavy weapon, be it a slug thrower, a repeating rifle, something of that nature, to the point where he would be able to eliminate you if you were not able to act in the correct way or extremely fast.
What is the biggest danger to me?
What's most vulnerable to you?
Yeah.
I would say the fact that you are completely separated from your team, and even though you know the way out of the base because all you did was make a couple turns and it'd be easy for you to run back out, you know that you are alone and that Ophelia is alone. So the biggest threat to you is the fact that you have no backup and you have no way of communicating with your team.
Are there any dangers that we haven't noticed?
There are no partially hidden dangers. There are probably, again, when it comes to your knowledge of Imperial protocol, you know that there is a weapon behind that counter. You look around ever so slightly and you see a security camera in the top left corner of your side of the room. All right, Ophelia, it's back over to you for a little bit. So the deck officer walks over to a computer terminal and begins to type in some information. And you should be aware there are 2 other officers in the room with you, as well as a single stormtrooper. He's kind of just leaning against the wall casually. As a matter of fact, right across from you. He's on the other side of the door from you. And he kind of looks over at you and he kind of sizes you up, then goes back to kind of lazily standing at attention. He is at an attention, but he is obviously extremely bored and is not very interested in what he's doing right now. So what will you do?
Take a few steps forward, coming in just to the side of the deck officer who began typing in commands and stuff. So I'll just be coming to the side silently, not wanting to draw too much attention. And if I can, I'm going to just wordlessly observe what they are doing in an attempt to gather information.
Go ahead and roll plus sharp to investigate a mystery. 10.
That's a 10.
Very good. You guys are rolling well today. No
Bless.
no oopsies yet.
Bless.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it.
Okay, so on a 10, you get 2 hold.
Is being concealed here.
Off to the right-hand side, you see a computer terminal that you know from your conversation with Joris in kind of a briefing that you had with him, kind of post like main mission briefing. He gave you all descriptions of a access terminal for those of you who needed it, and you know that that is an Imperial database access terminal that you are looking at. Not the one that the deck officer is typing into, but it's kind of off to the side. What is your second question?
I mean, what are these in regards to, these questions?
What happened
deck
here? They would be just what happened here is kind of not applicable. What sort of creature is it?
Say, what can hurt it, as in what would cause a fumble, large enough that
yeah, I would say
I
would say the ones that are kind of applicable here are what can it do, as in what can the system you are currently looking at do, what can hurt it, i.e. what can break it, not where did it go, and then what was it going to do, kind of what the deck officer is doing. So,
I guess what can it do? As in, like, what is it meant to?
You are watching the Imperial officer enter in some access codes and search through the Imperial flight log and manifest registry currently. It's tied into the database, the one that you want to get access to, but it's more of a localized unit designed for keeping records within this base. So he's looking in a records terminal right now, and it can pull up records, and it can also perform basic functions within the base, such as turn on the alarm, turn on the sprinkler system, shut doors, open doors, turn on and off lights, etc., etc.
Alrighty then.
Yep.
So is that it, or am I allowed to take another,
I mean, you can continue to
few
act if you wish.
After observing what I have observed, I'm going to go toward the open command desk, and not sit down at it, but stand near it as if waiting for some form of instruction.
The officer stands up, kind of like he was bending over inspecting the desk, or not bending over inspecting it, but he was working on the station. He turns and looks at you, and then back to the console, and then back to you, then back to the console, and then he stands up and turns, and he walks over, and he looks down at you and says the following. Who is your commanding officer?
Oh boy. Commanding officer.
And while she thinks about that, we'll jump back to Ophelia, or not, we'll jump back to Aura and Narsor. So you guys have been in the shuttle for a little while now. Are you guys getting kind of antsy or nah?
I definitely am. I'm not used to sitting around and waiting for things to happen, so I'm kind of waiting around to see if we should just keep waiting or if we should actually be going out and helping.
I'm assuming Narsor subdued the stormtrooper to put breaking his neck lightly.
He did, yes. What are you guys gonna do? You guys are sitting there kind of antsy. I think to encourage some decision, I'm going to take some liberty. Yes, go ahead.
Narsor's perfectly fine waiting. He's just sort of sitting there. He actually sort of sitting under the floorboard still, waiting for another stormtrooper to walk over.
Oh, of course he is. Okay. Alright, you are appearing at the window, yes?
I am, yes.
You see something that terrifies you to a little degree. It's not terrifying, but it's something that makes you go, oh shit. Because you look out the window and you see the hangar bay door start to close slowly.
Huh.
You have time to get through it, and you see no Imperial in sight. But the door is starting to close, and there is no getting out of the hangar except by flying. So you need to make a decision. Are you going to be split off from Jelmorr and Ophelia and stay here with B1, Dobrax, and Narsor, or are you going to move?
Well, if it was Jelmorr alone, without Ophelia with him, I would have left him. Sorry, Jelmorr. But
damn.
But because Ophelia is still out there, I'm not going to leave her until I know that she's back on the ship with me.
All right. So does that mean you're going for it?
Can I ask a question out of character?
Sure.
I guess, yeah, out of character.
I may not be obligated to answer, though.
That's fine. There's no armor for me to take, so how, what's the percentage of me being spotted by another stormtrooper if I just ran out of the ship?
There's plenty of armor for you to take. What are you?
She's a Twi'lek. She can't fit into a stormtrooper helmet.
It's just the helmet. The rest is fine.
Like if I just ran out of the ship.
I can't answer that for you. I honestly can't. However, I can say that since that blaster bolt went off and nobody has responded back in the 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes that since it's gone off, that it's pretty safe to say that there's nobody out there, but I cannot confirm that for you.
I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to go through. I'm going to leave the ship.
Are you going to try and drag Narsor or no?
If she walks over, Narsor will just hoist himself up and go, where?
Yes, I'm going to try to convince Narsor to come with me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's character dialogue. I can't do that.
Oh. Narsor? We're going to go and we're going to find Ophelia and Jelmorr. They've been out for too long. And I don't know if something's gone wrong, but we need to get our shipments and we need to get out of here.
Narsor is nodding his head, though you can tell there's like basically the DVD screen going on, and then you see it like the equivalent of it hitting the corner as he goes, okay.
So you guys are able to make it, you're able to make it through and under the bay door. You're not spotted. As you guys make it through the door, you see far, far off to your right, you see a group of figures kind of emerge from around the corner of the tower, and we bounce to Jakk. All right, so Jakk, you guys, the tall figure, the two humans, the Twi'lek, and the Quarren, you all stood kind of near the wall talking, and the way it kind of played out was they were talking to you like you had taken something of theirs. Were you okay with this, or did you try to swing some other kind of idea?
Yes, I am fine with this.
Okay, cool. In that case, you guys were kind of standing there talking, and the troopers came up to you, and they tried to start figuring out what was going on, and before they knew it, they got jumped. So I need you to roll to kick some ass. Jakk, go ahead and mark experience on your sheet. So what do you do? I'm gonna say that you tipped off the Imperials before you guys jumped them. So what did you do to tip off the squad before you had to start fighting them? Like you had a tell, or you drew your blaster too soon, or something that made it obvious that this was a trap and they were about to get dunked on.
Jakk pulls out his blaster to fiddle with it, eyeing the others' weapons and tools. He moves to them. He accidentally fires his weapon at the wall while he is moving his hand over it. He did this because he recently modified his weapon using items he stole from others.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so the troopers, let's see, the large robed figure takes the shock trooper to the ground and starts to tussle, while the Quarren moves to the door to open it, and then the other two, or the other, let's see, that leave the other three, one of the humans tries to tackle one of the stormtroopers, but gets hit in the shoulder by a blaster bolt, and the Twi'lek and the human engage two stormtroopers, and there is one remaining. So that is just you and him, buddy boy. So I need you to roll to kick some ass one more time. And that's a 7. That is a partial success. Good job. I'm going to say it does 2 harm, and 1 of that harm is negated by armor, so he takes a shot to the chest, and he fires off a blaster bolt at you, and you are hurt for 2 damage. Do you have any armor that negates?
Nope, nothing except robes.
Cool. All right, so you are hurt for 2 harm. Okay, let's get some dice out here. All right, and 4. Okay, that's good. And 4. Okay, and nice. Your teammates are rolling high, and then the one on the door rolls high as well. Okay, so the the hooded figure kind of picks the shock trooper up, runs at the wall, and just slams the dude into the wall. And he sinks to the ground. The Twi'lek and the human, finish knocking out the 2 other troopers, and the last one is kind of standing there and sees the 4 of you surrounding them, and he's going to take a pot shot at the one working on the door, and rolls poorly. So he takes the legendary stormtrooper aim. He takes a shot at the guy working on the door to try and break it open and misses. What do you do? Are you going to kind of stand back and let the other guys tackle him, or are you going to try and finish him off? All right, very good. So the other 3 soldiers clobber him, and the Twi'lek steps forward and helps the injured human up, and they kind of hasten away from the scene. And you, Jakk, and the other human and the robed figure, you guys kind of crowd around the Quarren working on the door, and he manages to hack it and get it to slide open ever so slightly, so that there's like a tiny door-sized hole that's as the doors slide open partially, and you guys are able to climb in. Everyone draws blasters and go through the hole, and you guys look off to your left, and you see a Twi'lek and a Hergil emerging from the hangar area. Ophelia, what is your commanding officer's name?
Okay. I had an entire time to do research and came up with Jakk. Hold on. No.
Are you telling me that you spent this entire time on Google looking for Imperial officer names? Oh, that's awesome.
So Ophelia is actually going to attempt to channel her force sensitivity to divert their attention away. So I believe that would, well, I could use the move Hex, but that's known for damage. So I think can I manipulate someone?
This is
It's manipulate someone, but because it's the force, would I roll plus weird?
Yes. Go ahead and go for it.
All right.
I will ask you though, how often do you do this? Is this the first time you're using it?
To manipulate?
Yes. I'm not talking about in this game. Okay, so you've used this before.
Ophelia has used the force a lot, both for spying and for the manipulation of other people's thoughts while spying.
Okay, cool.
So.
All right, so go ahead and roll to manipulate person plus weird.
10.
Alrighty. What do you say to the what do you say to the deck officer?
She looks the deck officer in the eye and says, "My squadron has confidential information that I am not allowed to share. However, that is not the reason I came here.
And
I was led here. I forgot what I said last session, but I think she said she was more interested in commanding than piloting.
I was led here on a career, and he responds back with, "You have confidential information, and you were led here on your career path." Okay, that's good. And he nods and blinks for a moment, and then looks at you and says, "So, how can we help?"
I'm to learn how to access commands and run a command center for other Imperial compounds.
Well, yes. I would be more than happy to show that to you. However, it is best if you access it with your own credentials. You do remember your code, yes?
She glances at her shush. She glances at her uniform and nods. I believe I do.
He gestures to the console that he was just standing at, and says, "It is open to the proper screen. Just enter your code and I will show you some of the basic functions of the compound."
I have a question out of character. When that deck officer went to do his own thing on the screens, did he put in his credentials?
He did.
Would it be possible that
Roll plus sharp.
Oh boy. Okay. 9.
Yes, it is possible you remembered his credential code. Is that what you entered?
Yep. She leans, so she has long hair, and although it's under a hat, she leans forward to the keyboard, so her hair is kind of drooping over it. So she does not. I assume that, like it's putting in a password, it does not actually show the characters that are being entered. So
nope,
she's hiding.
And all command codes are basically the same length. So
she hides her fingers as she leans over.
Meanwhile, as she does that, Jelmorr, you notice that the shock trooper sergeant puts a hand up to his helmet, like he's talking to somebody on a comm, and he very obviously turns over his shoulder and looks at you, and then looks back and says a few more things into his comm link, as he hands the blaster over to the quartermaster, and that is all. Ophelia, you are now logged in. The deck officer leans over your shoulder and says, "All right, so you're going to go to that menu, yes, that one," and you click on the menu, and he says, "All right, enter in the following code," and he recites a command line, and you enter it in, and you press enter, and on your screen appears a list of all the security camera feeds for the station. And he says, these are all of the feeds for the security cameras around the compound. Just go ahead and click on one to see what it does.
Ophelia briefly scans over them and is going to choose.
Okay, I'll give you. All right, just I'll give you a list, and we'll play a little bit of Russian roulette with this. let's see. Yes, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10.
8.
All right. The security feed pops on, and there are 2 troopers, a shock trooper and a stormtrooper, standing by what appears to be the north entrance of the compound. Yep, and you can pick a go ahead and you can pick another one from the list, and it'll just switch right over.
She
Or we
nods.
can look at something else if you want, but it's
I believe I've grasped this.
Are you sure? I know it's not that complicated, but some people just like flipping through it.
She glances and shrugs and says, "All right, one more." And she exits back to the main camera feed and chooses, I guess, camera number 3. I feel like I'm on Deal or No Deal.
Well, I
Case
have
number
news
3.
for you. No deal.
Oh,
Because you turn on camera number 3 and you open that camera to right outside of the warehouse, and on the screen you see the giant form of Herjlik and the smaller form of Origami.
I'm going to immediately try to exit.
Okay, you're going to roll plus cool, and I'm gonna roll plus sharp.
Oh, I'm so sorry, fellas.
Don't worry, it just gives me people to whack.
More.
8.
7.
Oh.
He was like, he was like, that's strange. One of those stormtroopers looked a little bigger than usual. Anyways, he gestures to another command line and says, he gestures to another command and says, this one will take you to the flight log record, which you will need to access from time to time, especially if you're in command. You're going to want to check the flight logs of incoming and outgoing shuttles, their manifests, and so on and so forth. And you click on that log, and lo and behold, on that list is a file called documentation and landing codes.
Mm-hmm.
Switching back to Jelmorr, the shock trooper turns and looks at you and says,
So, what unit did you transfer from? Or what unit are you a part of, I should say?
Oh God.
Yeah, I feel that one.
I'm gonna kick Sigma.
It's time to roll kick some ass against Sigma.
against the DM.
Exactly.
So, Jelmorr, what unit you from, buddy?
I would kind of stare at him for a moment and say, I just finished my basic training, and I've been assigned as sort of a protection detail to the captain that I came aboard with.
All right, I'll give it to you. He nods and he says,
Yeah, I guess that's cool. So, are you sure you know how to handle a blaster? Because I looked at that thing, and just from the looks of things, it did not look damaged at all. Are you sure you passed basic?
I did pass basic, but that doesn't mean that I was very good with the blaster. And he would chuckle slightly awkwardly.
the sergeant would shake his head and look at the quartermaster and say,
The deck officer said that we should get him a new blaster until you can take a look at that one. What do you have for him?
the officer looks at the weapons behind him and he says,
Well, I've got some I've got some weapons that are practically foolproof, if that's what we're dealing with here. I also have the standards, the good old standbys.
And he walks over to one of the pegboards basically on the wall and takes an E11 off of the rack and walks back over and sets it on the desk and says,
Just cleaned this one this morning. Should be working just fine.
And the sergeant picks it up and walks over to you and kind of looks you up and down and says,
So, which academy did you go through?
You.
I will say that since Jelmorr has some experience, he would know of one or two places that have Imperial academies. Also, if you ask Tech, I'm sure he could just tell you one straight off the dome.
No way.
Tech,
Coruscant, Lothal.
Well, Coruscant.
Coruscant is for the big time. Lothal is an outer rim one where you probably wouldn't get cared about.
So Lothal, is that what you said? Lothal.
Mm-hmm.
Lothal.
Yeah, that's from
right.
that's from Star Wars
That's
Rebels.
from Rebels. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. He stays quiet for a second, then says, "Lothal."
The trooper nods and says,
Yeah, we've been getting an influx from them recently. It's too bad. They don't treat their troops well enough. Not like the ones back on Coruscant for OCS.
and he hands you the blaster and he nods towards the door.
I'll take you to your captain now. Let's go.
And
I would nod and follow him. Oh,
okay.
yeah, you were saying something.
You guys,
All right.
you guys exit and you head out. As you guys are walking, you pass another set of doors and then enter the command center unless you want. Do you want to ask him anything?
I don't believe so. Because I want to keep my interaction with him as limited as possible.
All right, that makes sense.
I do not need any more scary questions.
All right. So, the room is now getting quite crowded, and the stormtrooper that was off to the side kind of straightens up, and when the sergeant walks in, sergeant nods at him, then nods to the deck officer and says,
Got this one set up with a new weapon. He should be good to go. I'm gonna go back to my rounds.
The deck officer nods and says, "All right, very good. You are dismissed, Sergeant."
Very good, sir.
And he walks out, the door sliding behind him shut with a hiss. Now there is Jelmorr, Ophelia, two Imperial officers, the Imperial deck officer, and another stormtrooper all in the same room. Let's bounce back to the away team. So we now have a united team of rebels. We have Jakk, Aura, and Narsor with the hooded figure, the Quarren, and the human. The hooded figure refers to them as Steel 1, the human, Steel 2, the Quarren. So he's got Steel 1 and 2 with him, and he tells them to take the right flank. In his gruff voice, he says, "Steel 1, Steel 2, take the right flank, go." And they nod and they quickly and quietly move to the right side of the building. He looks at you, Narsor, and looks you up and down and says, "Well, you're a big boy, aren't you?" Whack! And he looks at you, Aura, and nods, and then says, "Where are the rest of them? I know you have two more humans as part of your team. Where are they?"
They're currently around the facility we're trying to find them as we speak.
He nods and says, well, that's great. All right. And he walks very cautiously and quickly to the door that you saw Jelmorr and Ophelia go through. And as he posts up next to the door slides open and the shock trooper sergeant steps through and he sees Narsor and he reaches for his blaster, but he doesn't stand a chance. The hooded figure reaches out, grabs him by the helmet, and then just like by the top of the helmet, and basically just picks him up and throws him down with just one hand, slamming him into the ground. He gets behind him and just rips his neck, and not like open, but like snaps it. And he gestures with a finger to the warehouse door and says, some of you guys are going to need to go through that door. And he volunteers.
Hey, Sigma, question.
Yes.
What kind of gun did the shock trooper have?
He had a DLT 19.
Narsor's gonna pick it up and put it on his back.
Narsor's got a ranged weapon. Very cool. All right, so on your character,
he has to like use his pinky to pull the trigger.
you can we'll say he like ripped the trigger guard off of the thing. It does 3 harm. You can do it at close and far. It can spread over an area, and that it is loud. Very, very loud. All right, so who's going to stand in front of the bay door while the hooded figure goes in?
I'll do it.
Okay, Narsor, what you doing? And Jakk, I guess.
Narsor's just sort of like moved to follow him.
Okay, and then Jakk, are you going to go stand with Aura, or are you going to follow Narsor?
I will stand with Aura.
Okay, Narsor, you follow him in, and you guys go through the door in front of you, and then you go through the second door, and you emerge into a warehouse. And the second you do, you see 2 officers looking over lists on data pads, and you see a stormtrooper really, really close to you. Like, you come out on kind of a walkway that doesn't raise very high up off of the ground, I guess. But you come in on that walkway and kind of a few steps in front of, and then over the walkway down on the kind of loading bay, I should say, there is a stormtrooper. What do you do as this hooded figure, Narsor, what do you do as this hooded figure takes his fist and slams it into a button on the wall, and the bay doors begin to open, and this draws the attention of the 3 Imperials.
What 3 so out of how many Imperials, if I
3.
rush them, could I hit?
If you rushed them, you could
Like
only hit
if
1.
I just
You could only hit
like
1, but it only appears that 1 is armed.
and that's the one that's right by the walkway, right?
Yep.
So you're saying I have an elevated position over this stormtrooper.
Just pat your elbow, and his name is John Cena.
So you see, Narsor is going to do this thing known as crushing your enemy with 400 pounds of whale.
Oh, is that so?
Yes. He is. I would like to kick some ass to do this.
Alrighty, go ahead and roll to kick some ass.
Okay, I rolled an 11 to crush a stormtrooper.
You vault over the railing and just slam down onto this stormtrooper. I'm not gonna even like. He's done, dunzoed, like nothing. Nah. And the 2 officers look at you, and they are like going full-blown panic mode. One of them starts rushing for a terminal on the wall, and one of them starts rushing for the bay door that is now opening. And he runs into you, Aura and Jakk. What do you two do in order to stop him from getting away, or are you gonna let him run?
So hold on. So he's a trooper that
No, he's like in an Imperial officer uniform. He was just checking the manifest when you guys decided to visit.
I'm going to run after this Imperial officer, you said it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to run after the officer and make sure he doesn't get anywhere. So I'm going to try to hold him in some sort of grip with a gun to his neck and hope to God that if he screams, hope to God that my gun will scare him enough so that he doesn't scream.
All right, I'm gonna need you to roll plus tough. That's an 8. That'll do it. So okay. So you're able to catch him, and you hold the gun to his neck, and let's get some character dialogue going here. No, let me go. Let me go.
I would grip onto you tightly, making sure that you cannot get out of my grip, and the gun would simply move closer to your neck and underneath your chin, and I wouldn't say anything.
He kind of stops talking when he feels the barrel of your blaster against his neck, and he sits there for a little bit, and then he jerks his body in an attempt to like surge forward and get away. But in that attempt, he wrestles against you and makes you accidentally pull the trigger, blasting him through the head. He falls to the ground dead, and you are left there over top of his body. In the meantime, inside, the officer that went for the control panel on the wall is jumped by the hooded figure and pinned to the ground, and consequently knocked out via a very strong punch to the dome. You hear the sound of running footsteps and a voice saying,
Hey, is anybody over there? Hey, are you guys okay? This is Unit 8820 reporting in. We might need some medical support over by the loading dock.
And a trooper rounds the corner and sees you, Aura, and he's going to take a shot at you and does poorly. Stormtrooper aim. Okay, and the shot misses. He misses and hits Jakk. So, no, I'm kidding.
Don't scare me like that. God. Ah.
I can see text chat. I can see you talking shit. So the blaster bolt misses, and but that's another shot gone off. And he reaches to his ear and says,
Red alert! Red alert! Somebody sound the alarm! Rebels have infiltrated the compound.
And with that, we flip over to Jelmorr and Ophelia. And you are standing there in the room as the voice comes through. What do you do as the people in the room around you start to react?
Ophelia looks to the deck officer and asks, "How can I do that?" Actually, I'm gonna message you, Sigma.
Okay, while she does that, Jelmorr, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna keep your cool and wait for Ophelia to do something, or are you gonna act?
I'm gonna wait for Ophelia to do something because I'm assuming that she might have a plan.
She is the officer, after all.
Exactly.
Yeah, so she's kind of waiting on this instruction of like, how do I sound the alarm? That would be important.
You don't have a notepad. You'd have to steal the files. Anyways, just because of the way that it's encrypted.
Anyway, my thing still stands. She's waiting for instruction on how do I turn the
Okay.
alarm on.
He in a slightly panicked voice says, go back to the main screen and click the security systems listing, and then go to alarm and set it to on. And I assume you do all of those things. But do you follow his instructions or no?
She looks to the deck officer and says, "Copy. You might want to go. You might want to go assist them. I will sound the alarm and make sure that stays on."
He kind of blinks and shakes his head and says, "I'm just an officer. Not. I'm not meant for field work." And he looks at you, and then he looks at Jelmorr and the stormtrooper, who is now like posted up at the door, and says, "You two, go and assist the outer perimeter breach. Go and secure the perimeter." And the trooper nods and leaves the room. Jelmorr, what do you do?
Jelmorr or me, I would follow the trooper out of the room.
Okay. What do you do once you exit the room?
How close would I be to this trooper?
Extremely close.
So I'm gonna do a little maneuver of, well, is there anybody else in the hallway with us?
Not yet.
All right.
But you guys have like just exited. Okay, so in reference to the map, you guys have just come out of the command room. You have not rounded that corner yet.
The corner towards the
Towards the
very
hangar
south.
bay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not gonna do anything yet, because I feel like that's too risky. So I'm just gonna keep following the trooper until we actually make it out into the area of battle.
All right, so you guys round the corner and run towards the entrance, towards the storage area, and out of the room to your right as you head that way. Because you exit the command center, go down the hall, hang a right, and as you move down that way, 3 more stormtroopers exit the room that you passed going to the command center, and then further down the hall, you see 2 more stormtroopers step out of the room and head for the door that's on the far side of the compound. Are you going to go out the west entrance, or are you going to go out the south entrance?
I'm gonna follow the other stormtroopers up.
Okay. All right, then let me kind of. Oh boy. Let me kind of set the scene for you then. Aura and Jakk, you guys are. I don't want to say you're standing there. I'm assuming you guys have kind of retreated as the stormtrooper starts kind of firing at you and chasing you. Or are you guys going to fight back a little bit?
I think we're going to get somewhere a little bit safer than just out in the open.
Okay, so we'll say you guys kind of retreated to the corner of the building and you're firing back at him. All right, go ahead and roll to kick some ass to see if you land a shot.
Both of us?
Yeah.
All right, I will be right back.
8 and a miss. Aura, mark experience. Jakk, you hit the stormtrooper square in the chest for 1 damage. He stumbles backwards and continues to fire at you guys, and he does not land a hit. And then next to him, 2 more stormtroopers emerge, and they both. One manages to land a hit on Aura. dealing 2 damage unless there's armor in the way. And then Aura, you manage to also hit them for however much damage your blaster does. I assume it's 2, yes? Or is it 3?
2.
Okay, and hitting them for 1 damage. Do you have any armor that negates some of the damage that was dealt to you, or no?
No.
Okay, so you take 2 damage from that blaster bolt. Hachimachi, you guys are not doing well. Okay, then it's time to describe Narsor's scene. Okay, Narsor, you look back over the railing as 2 stormtroopers emerge from the door that you had entered through, and the hooded figure stands up real fast and looks at the 2 stormtroopers that just emerged.
Can Narsor take the stormtrooper he crushed and toss it at them?
I mean, he can, yeah.
I would like to do that.
2 more troopers entered the warehouse. They kind of broke off from your group, and then you and 2 other troopers came out that southern exit, and are now looking at the situation from there. Ophelia, you are sitting at the console as this deck officer is pacing and watching the security cameras. And from a door that you didn't notice before, off to your right, it slides open, and through it emerges a Quarren and a human, both dressed in street garb, and they level their blasters at the 3 officers, and they level their blasters at you guys and say, "All right, everybody, stand up." Against the wall, the human says, "Stand up against the wall, arms up, go, 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 come on." Ophelia, what do you do?
I am not about to risk dying at the hands of basically my teammates. So I get up and hope to prove my innocence to them if they don't shoot first and ask questions later.
As you guys back up to the wall, the Quarren looks at you kind of sideways and says, "Wasn't one of them a girl?" And the human asks, or looks at the Quarren and nods, and then looks over to you, Ophelia, and kind of sizes you up and says, "You wouldn't happen to be one of the members of the shuttle that landed here earlier, would you?"
Straight ahead. She at them. She's not exactly she doesn't say anything, but she gives the tiniest nod, like wordless, just
He nods and says, "Imperial scum, always shipping things onto our planet. Nothing good could come from the likes of you." And you see him give the ever so slightest wink as he turns his head. And he, as the Quarren levels his rifle at you guys, he takes to the monitors and he types in some commands, and a disc spits out, and he takes the disc and he tosses it to the Quarren, who catches it without looking, like a badass. And then he brings up the security camera feeds for the cameras around the warehouse to see how you guys are doing. You guys are around the warehouse, Aura, Jakk, and Narsor with this robed figure. And Narsor, you pick up the body of the stormtrooper you crushed, and you hurl it at the 2 stormtroopers that just entered the warehouse, and they get hit by this flying body, and in a surge of movement, this hooded figure moves across the walkway and finishes the 2 off. Knowing that the situation is now loud, pulls out a blaster pistol or some kind of device, I guess. It's not a pistol, it's more like a rifle, and he blasts the 2 troopers in the dome, and then hops down to join you, Narsor. And as Jelmorr, I'm assuming you're kind of trailing behind the other 2 troopers that are with you to kind of not get shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You let's see, hold on. You watch as these two troopers round the corner and they both fire off shots at Narsor. And as this is happening, Aura and Jakk are kind of backing up into the warehouse as well as the other three troopers kind of round the corner. So you guys are kind of getting pinned behind boxes, and these two troopers fire off shots at Narsor, and in another blinding kind of motion, this robed figure kind of moves to knock boxes into the way of the blaster bolts to protect you, Narsor. But in that process, in that process, their robe falls off, and for a moment, there is shock between the troopers that have surrounded you, between you all that are in the hangar, and between the Imperial officers and Ophelia that are in the command room. As a matter of fact, the only people who are not shocked are the two rebels that are in the command room looking at the cameras with kind of this just huge grin on their faces, because standing tall, almost as tall as Narsor, is this giant, muscular, bipedal creature with this skin that looks smooth but also looks like it's covered in purplish fur. Their eyes are this dull green, and their ears come to a point, and their weapon expands into a staff that starts to crackle with electricity at both ends. And standing in the middle of this battleground is a Lasat, a warrior alien from a proud race thought extinct. And he growls at the stormtroopers and says, "All right, so we're playing that game then."
Do you think this
11?
voice is funny, Jess? Do you think this voice is funny?
I do. I really do.
Do you laugh at me? Do you mock Spa's voice, the embodiment of Spa, who I know is a deep-voiced individual, but screw it.
No, this is way better than Spa's normal
This is-
voice.
This is the disembodied voice of Spa.
If I would give anything if Spa could talk like that on the daily.
Oh my gosh.